runway because nobody knows these goals but us and you. The first one is the short-term goal is quality community growth. So they didn't want explosive growth. They didn't want us to go advertise in Farmville, meet your mate, and trick them into liking something because they get money off on flowers or something. They actually wanted to go and say, we really need to think this through. And if you think about online dating, it's one of the hardest things to operate inside a social network. So if I decide to sign up for eHarmony, which would probably be horrible because I'm married, but if I went and signed up on eHarmony, what's my propensity to go to their Facebook page and click a like button? It's pretty low. I've gotten zero result out of it. All I've given them is my money, and I have hope, basically, is all I have. Those people that are in front of that decision, these people that haven't even considered it yet or they're thinking about it, those are the people that we need to reach. So as we worked with them, we started thinking about, well, wait a minute, I think everybody's seen those TV commercials or something like 1 in 5 marriages. I can't remember if that's eHarmony or Match. Match took a lot of their marketing messaging too, but they both perform really well. A lot of great relationships are starting from these sites. And so they have tons of what they call success couples out there. They're people that they'll dress up as eHarmony for Halloween. These people think that eHarmony is the best thing ever because it brought them something that they couldn't really find any other way. So we really looked at how do we go through these success couples and build this community of quality over time. The long-term goal was the one that was easy not to be excited about, was reflection in socially driven sales. So it's not so much that it's not to be excited about, but I don't think it's any secret that revenue directly from social media with last click attribution, not so great. The other thing is that generally when you look at what somebody wants in a community is they want a deal or a special. They're not looking for just getting the warm fuzzy and hearing what people have to say. That's not really what they're looking for when a brand is talking in that conversation. And so that was a longer term thing. Guys, don't worry about it. You got plenty of time. This isn't going to be a problem. And somewhere along the ways we started talking about what are we going to do for ROI measurement. And when we initially started the conversation, the one that they wanted to have us do, and Heather, our social media person, and I wanted to just run away, was value of a fan. And I have a huge problem with that idea of taking something like social media and what a person is and what they contribute to this community and ecosystem and dialogue, and kind of just putting that number on their head, which I think a year ago that was popular. It was $3.64, then it was $12.22. And none of that makes any sense because it's going to be different across business, and I think you have value in the community and the reach in the community and what's happening. Kind of trying to tag it down to one individual person is a pretty silly metric. So as we talked about it and tried to get further along to it, what we could actually measure that would be tangible for when these questions started arising, and just other ways, we do want other ways of being measured. We want to avoid that, hey, another agency came in, they promised us 100,000 fans within 4 months, you guys are out. Thanks for coming. We want to bring in other things to bear. So the one that we came up with was actually with us and that VP that initially brought us in, and it was to look at earned media. And so what's happening with a lot of businesses, and definitely with eHarmony, was they're cutting a lot of their expenses that they're putting into television because it basically had plateaued. And so television had worked great over the years because it's an awareness mechanism, but I think eHarmony's pretty much, I think they reach like 99% penetration on knowledge of inside the household. So they don't really need that anymore. They still do need to maintain it. You can see the drop in sales when they go below a certain level. But it put a lot of money on the table. There was a lot more to be had and a lot more to think about. And so when we were talking to the VP about what's happening, and we had all of our metrics, we had all the what I call the softer metrics, we worked with the EdgeRank formula, which is what Facebook uses to figure out how many people are going to see this message. So if you run a Facebook fan page and you push a message out there, people think that it just goes to everybody in your fan base, and it doesn't. It goes to a certain percentage of them, and it's based on a whole bunch of different factors, like the relationship between who's speaking and who's receiving. So everybody's propensity to see that message is different. It's even the type of message that it is. So basically what we've figured out is the more difficult it is, the more work it takes to put that message out, kind of the better the propensity it is that it'll be visible. It'll get a little bit better chance out of the gate. And there's time decay applied to it. There's all sorts of things that Facebook tells us when they released that formula last year. And so we were always trying to optimize that and see and think about, well, we're never going to know the true number. So if I put out a post and I have 40,000 fans and it says I hit 20,000, the truth about it is we don't really know how many were our fans and how many were the earned impressions of somebody taking action on what was posted. And so the example is I'm a fan of eHarmony. I'm not using it. I'm a fan of eHarmony, but when Heather posts, none of my network sees any of that. But as soon as I click the like button, or I share it, or I move it around, then it gets the whole game starts again, and it gets dosed out to a certain amount of my friends. It looks at the relationship. It looks at all these different things and decides how far is this going to go. Facebook won't tell you what those numbers are for pretty good reasons. That's their proprietary stuff that they get to hang on to. Would love to know, don't know. Everybody's kind of guesstimating what it really is, and no one's really sure. So sometimes we would do a post, and you would see that it would hit 20% more than your total growth, than your total fan base. So you know you're getting some people, but really you never know. That initial thing could have happened. There could have been a strong relationship and an immediate action by somebody that Facebook deemed to be very important in that connection between eHarmony and the person who was interacting with the information. It could have gone off in a completely different direction. You really just don't know. So the ones that we settled on, we did think that those, even though we don't know if we're showing it to our existing fan base or if it's getting to other people, that earned media has a value in the same way that when the metrics come back from a media plan and say that, well, you got this many views, we don't know if those were customers or not. That's that's the way the world is. You have to take some faith in what's happening and kind of understand that. Same thing with television. So they're getting all these views on television of their commercial, but they really don't know who's viewing it. They don't know what the existing relationship is. Were they married? Do they hate eHarmony? Are they a match user? They have no idea what's really happening there. So there's a gray area, and that's okay. And I think that was one of the things that we kind of learned over the way, is that there's going to be gray areas, and you just have to be open and honest about what those gray areas are and communicate about it until that grayness hopefully will start going away in a little bit of time. So this is pretty easy stuff, actually, when you know what you want to measure, why you're measuring it, and kind of how to get there. And so none of these metrics were really made available to us until we asked. And so we were asking, what's the total lifetime value of a customer? And these numbers are all completely fudged, just so you know. So total lifetime value of a customer, $200. So I'm making that up, but so life cycle, people who start, stop, never come back, people who stay for a long time, we're just going to call it $200 the total lifetime value. We can figure out pretty easily. We know when they run advertisements on premium placement in Facebook, which we consider to be having visibility in person-to-person communication in that feed or that wall that you have. We think that's pretty premium because you're inserting yourself into a dialogue that's not marketing dialogue. I didn't walk to the mall. I'm actually having a dialogue with the people and things that I want to be around, and I'm inserting it in there. So we think it's pretty premium media. Their rates went up and down. This one's actually pretty close. It's gone between $7 and $10 historically. We used 8, and we told them what we used and what the range was. So how many conversions did we have that we could track? So tracking is pretty horrible. They didn't want to track, they didn't want to do conversions right from their page because they wanted to focus on building community. They have a lot of paid programs that are pointing people to landing pages and other media, so they didn't really want to make that a part of the Facebook page. We turn it on, we turn it off, we test it out. But what they can tell is final click. So on that final click number, it's pretty abysmal. So 125. Not very good when you think about what you're trying to achieve and what the brand's trying to get after. The impression side was pretty good. We've gotten to a point where we're pretty good at managing. This is total for a month. This isn't any other time period. But we started getting pretty good with the posting. We started figuring out what people like. We started figuring out how the brand should speak, what the voice is. A lot of testing, a lot of experimenting, trying different things, getting some of those success couples involved, getting advocates to post on our behalf, sharing things that were a little bit outside, kind of on the edges of the brand, and really feeling out, like, how do we create a good content calendar for them over time. And so say 750,000 impressions in a month. And these numbers are definitely made up. Facebook monthly ad costs $5,000. And actually that might be true for some months. So Facebook advertising is always something that was something that they tested out. It's very different when you try to drive somebody out of network. The rates are really poor. Cost per click and cost per action ends up being very, very low in the end game. And when you want to keep them in the network, but your client doesn't want to have a conversion form there, I'm not too interested in doing that. But when they wanted to increase their like base and try to find the right people, we found ways of using it really well and getting costs down really low. One of the agencies they'd worked with in the past was operating at something like it's like a $10 cost per like, which was horrendous. And I'm happy to say we got down to $9.50. Just kidding. So we got down to $1, a couple of dollars. Just depends on when we were doing and what we were doing when we were doing it. Works really good around holidays and different times. And then so the last one that I didn't include here, did I? That last one shouldn't be monthly ad costs, I'm sorry. So let's say that the amount of effort times our rate that's actually to manage the community, that's what that last bullet should be. It should be managing the community. Actually, they're just switched. I kind of goofed that up, sorry about that. So the numbers might be a little wacky, but trust me, the math works. So what it takes to manage the community, we kind of had it dialed in. We know what we do. We don't do everything for them. They do a lot of their own responses. They do most of their customer service. There's escalation paths. There's all sorts of stuff. So we're not in there doing every single thing. Again, I can tell you that number is definitely off. It's low. So the first thing that we need to do is just rework the CPM calculation, which is pretty easy. How do we instead solve that for value or return? It's pretty easy. 10th grade math, no problem. So we know that equation. So the direct revenue one is even easier. So if we look at the earned media and we look at what that would be, comes down to about $6,000 in earned media. And again, we're painting this picture with a lot of kind of, let's just take this with a grain of salt. Let's not go running around screaming and being excited about it, especially if it's high. I did the exact same exercise for a brand that has closer to 300 or 400,000 fans, and the number was astronomical. It was awesome. But I didn't want to show them to anybody. You just have to figure out how much of that messaging is really marketing. You have to kind of really figure things out. So in the honesty on there is we looked at every message that was going out as a customer touch point. They wanted to measure that. Other brands, they don't want to do that at all. They want to be pretty refined down to when we're actually marketing product or service as opposed to doing community engagement. Direct revenue side, easy. And so when we come to the end, let me see, did I get this right or not? Yeah, I definitely goofed it up. But the addition on this slide works, so I'll fix it before I post the deck. But so basically they spent $12,500 in a month and they made $18,500 with my fake numbers. So then we just take that final equation that we have for ROI and just run that through, and we get to 48%. And so I know that there's more than one way of calculating ROI. There's a few different equations. There's much more advanced equations. But just using the baseline one, we can at least talk on a level that when the CEO walks into the VP's office and says, it's over. We don't need these social media guys. We're not really sure what we're doing exactly, and thanks for playing, but we have enough agencies. And actually, that happened. We still have them as a client. We didn't lose them, but you start off on these, just the way that life is, you start off on this kind of big runway. You've got as much time as you want. Let's build it up. Let's take it slow. Managing expectations on both sides. Everything's going great. Well, at the end of the year, I found out from a Google alert that their CEO stepped down. So the CEO, who the CMO reported to, he just left. Gone. Here today, not here tomorrow, all gone. The founder of the company was going to come back and run the company.